Football scientist KC Joyner joins us. One thought on every game. Before we get to that, we got to get his perspective on the Eagles. Lost to the Cowboys. The Philadelphia Eagles are officially, finally done in the playoff hunt at 4-10-1. Casey, how you doing?
Probably a little better than the Eagles are, but, as I saw some people say, maybe it's probably a good thing that their season ended because they weren't going to go very far in the playoffs, even if they did get there. Maybe it's just good to know that they got to start over.
Casey, once Fletcher Cox left the game, the team was outscored 34-3. So explain to the audience a little bit how one player can have that drastic impact on a game when his name, people think of Aaron Donald as the best defensive lineman in the league, but Fletcher Cox is maybe like a notch or two below that. So how can one guy disrupt the team that much?
It can do it because in the running game, if you don't disrupt the other team's ground attack, they can just keep running all day long. I've done a lot of studies on this over the years, and it just doesn't. You have to disrupt the other team's rushing attack. You can't just hope you're shedding tackles and have safeties come up to make tackles. No, you've got to defeat them, and he's the guy who defeats box in the middle. And when he goes out, you just now have to do things with your defense to say, okay, if we're going to stop the run, and mind you, 151 yards on the ground, they probably didn't stop the run, although Dallas wasn't quite as good as that number would suggest, but 34 carries, you're not stopping the run properly, and you're having to do things with your defense to make up for that, and plus whatever he gets in the passing game, too. So it's just a loss really tough to overcome.
What did you see from Doug Peterson yesterday, and did it change your opinion on if you think he should stay or not?
I see the same offensive creativity. It's just, I don't know. He's the head coach. You got to hold him responsible. But the entire secondary fell apart. It wasn't just the backups. You had Roby giving up a big play. You had Slay giving up a big play. I know he made the pick too. It was a great play for the pick. But they all were giving up big plays, and the tackling on defense was just atrocious. It was especially in the secondary. So I don't know that you have to let your head coach go because of that. But that was the big problem. Because offensively, look, I know they had 3 turnovers, but still, you like the production which you're seeing across the board there. And defensively, they just they need to get better cornerbacks, and maybe they need to go back to their safety-centric approach they did before this year, because they tried a cornerback-centric approach this year, and it ain't working.
Now, with that being said, about Peterson, just to follow up on that, we've seen guys who have won Super Bowls, like John Harbaugh and Sean Payton, have down years, and then they bounce back. Can Doug Peterson bounce back? Because, let's be realistic, he had 3 straight playoff appearances, but on each end, 2020 and 2016, no playoffs.
You don't give up on a good coach after one bad year. If I remember something that Bud Grant said years ago, he had a kicker, and his kicker named Fred Cox, and Fred Cox would have a bad game or two or something of that nature, and people would say, oh, you need to get a new kicker. And he was like, well, if I've got a good kicker and he has a bad day, I'm not going to give up on him because I know he's a good kicker. Cox was one of the greatest kickers in the 1970s, so it was a good move on Grant's part. But that's the idea with coaches, too. If you know the coach is not coaching well, then it's one thing. But with this team, okay, with Hurts and things, I see creatively, offensively, where I think they can go with that, and that's fantastic. They just need changes on defense, and I think they just need better personnel, because defense is all about personnel. You can't coach away at a bad personnel situation. So I see this more as a personnel situation than I do a coaching situation.
What stood out to you specifically in Jalen Hurts' game? Because yesterday was the first time we saw him, struggle to a bigger degree.
Isn't it incredible, though? We say struggle to a bigger degree, and I totally agree. He has the 2 interceptions. He loses the fumble. But he threw for 342 yards. The guy was still going around and making plays on the run. It's something that you don't want to base your offense around that. But that was something that had been missing with the Eagles' offense, to where if a play broke down, if it was a scramble play, you just didn't expect Wentz to do anything. It just wasn't going to happen. On the pass to Jackson, he had a scramble. That was one of the big plays there. I think you remember in the third quarter, I think he had another scramble play where he had like a 40-yard gain. I think it was to Watkins. So there were that type of offense to where if we play call something and it doesn't work, that you can go create on the run. That's a rare talent that Hurts has that only 5 quarterbacks, maybe 8 quarterbacks in the league have to something of a similar degree, and that adds a level of dangerousness to this offense that I think will come in handy down the road.
Football scientist KC Joyner joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at KC Joyner TFS for all your NFL and fantasy football news and information. Casey, one of the questions about Hurts as well is that you have one camp of people who are saying he's making some of these mistakes because he's a rookie, he didn't have an off season, and he's new and he's learning the NFL game. And you have another group of people who say, Wentz made the same mistakes. Why are we giving this guy so much rope? So, where do we draw the line to say that's a rookie mistake versus that's a bad football mistake?
He's got that. What is this? This is his third start. I mean, in his third start, he's making a mistake. And mind you, third start, that on the one interception where I believe he's in the fourth quarter, he's scrambling to his left. The pass rush is coming. He kind of throws across his body and it goes into coverage. There's somebody sitting in the middle of the zone, and they get the pick in the end zone, and it kills that drive. Okay, the Eagles are down late. They're trying to do something. He tries to make a play he shouldn't make. It was on third down, though. So, I mean, you could come back and get fourth down maybe, but it's a play like that where it's like if that's all it is under very extreme duress situations, he's making a mistake like that, and he's a rookie in his third start doing that, you can coach him out of it. With Wentz, it had been years, and he was making mistakes much earlier in games, and actually in worse situations. He's throwing into double coverages instead. He's not even trying to throw into obvious double coverages. The level of errors and the frequency of them when they happened and how much Wentz had before yesterday or before he got benched, all those things factors together just says, look, give Hurts the same amount of time that you gave Wentz before you give up on him.
Coming into the season, getting that explosive wide receiver was the conversation, so the Eagles went out and drafted Jalen Reagor. Well, it is fair to say it's been very underwhelming, and there's times where he just seems off with the route running, with the body language, with the physicality, with the speed, and that was one of the big conversations about him specifically. So how do you assess his play to this point?
He's like most. We've gotten to the point now of the last 3 years where we see Justin Jefferson and we see some rookie wide receivers come into the league and they dominate as rookies. We all need to remember that prior to some of these players who are able to do this, most wide receivers, and they say it's in fantasy football, you get the year 2 or year 3 breakout. Most wide receivers are going to take until that year 3 to get their true breakout. They're going to struggle. Like even Jerry Rice in his rookie season was just a good receiver and nothing more. And then year 2 it really kicked in from. So I look at rookie receivers generally and say, all right, I want to see how they're going to progress over the course of 3 years before I throw on the talent. I mean, he hasn't performed well this year and he hasn't been able to get the verticality going, but he's also had all the issues with the offense in general. So I want to give him more time than just the one season before I say that he's a bust.
Now, Casey, this means the Eagles are done with the playoffs, but they're in the most ridiculous situation because their game with Washington has been flexed into Sunday Night Football. So this is the most unimportant game of the franchise's season, yet they can knock Washington out, but they have nothing to play for. So what do you expect, or what are you watching for from the Eagles versus Washington here on Monday? Because we know Washington, Terry McLaurin's in a walking boot. Dwayne Haskins was cut by the team. I mean, this Washington team has their own set of mess to deal with.
They do. If I'm the Eagles, though, I mean, I remember there's a famous story about Vince Lombardi back in the 60s. There was a season-ending game. His team had already clinched everything it could clinch. It was a meaningless game. They played the Rams and out on the West Coast, and everybody thought that they were just going to throw in the towel. And Lombardi pitched his team, and look, you're professionals. Play this game because you're pros and because this is what we do. You're supposed to play this well. They barely lost the game against an LA team that won like 12 games that year. Point is that you always want to play to that level if you can. And if you're the Eagles, you got to look at this as saying, now, we got a Washington team who knows is going to be motivated. We need to get, Hurts, here's game number 4. We can get some productivity out of him. We can, maybe coach him some of these errors out of him. We get another game we can look at him. We can get stuff out of Reagor. We can get development time for a lot of these players. We might even get development time for some of the other players in the roster and check some of these guys out too and see, hey, we can get them live game time to see what we have on the roster. So there's plenty of opportunities to learn from this contest. I don't think the Eagles just need to mail it in. I think they need to go try and go out and win and see and go all out and give these guys a chance to see what they can show.
All right, KC Joyner, one thought on every game. It was a busy football weekend, so we're going to try to get to all of it right now. One thought on every game with KC Joyner. KC, New Orleans, thanks to Alvin Kamara, goes out and crushes Minnesota. But are the Saints really still a favorite? I mean, Minnesota's not really a good team right now.
Zimmer said that might be the worst. In fact, he said it was the worst defense I've ever had, and that's something from Zimmer. He's had some really good defenses, but I still wonder why they didn't give Kamara a chance to get 7 touchdowns, set the record. But the Saints showing that they could do that to still a Minnesota team. Minnesota puts up 33 points. It's not even close. Shows you where the Saints' offense is right now.
Saturday started with the Bucs absolutely crushing the Lions. But is this Tampa waking up, or is this an aberration because Detroit's Detroit?
Detroit had the worst defense in the league coming into this weekend from that game, and maybe Minnesota might be worse, but Detroit was the worst defense in the league coming into this weekend, and Tampa would have crushed them even if Detroit would have had their coaching staff. I think it says a lot for where Tampa is, but it probably says more for where Detroit is.
The running back whisperer, Kyle Shanahan, goes back to Arizona and takes Arizona out of the playoffs. Potentially, the Cardinals are hanging on by a thread, Casey, after losing 20-12.
San Francisco is such a well-coached team. They've had all kinds of issues this year with injuries, and they had turnovers in every game, 2 turnovers for every game since week 4. So they've had a lot of things that will be correctable for next year, but they're such a well-coached team. In Arizona, they're seeming to wear down the stretch, and that was what I worried about them, is that they build a team that could go 16 games, and I don't think that they have.
It looked like Vegas was on their way to staying in the playoff hunt, but then Fitzmagic comes in, gets a face mask, makes the pass, and the Dolphins win by 1 point.
Brian Flores, Coach of the Year, been saying it for a while. I know there's a lot of other candidates, but he is definitely Coach of the Year. Although, why are you waiting that long to put Fitzmagic in, and why aren't you starting Fitzmagic in Week 17? I'm not sure why that's the case, but hey, he found a way still to get it done. Dolphins look like a team that's going to be real hard out in the playoffs.
If I would have told you that Matt Ryan outplayed Patrick Mahomes, you would have thought Atlanta would have won, but Kansas City wins by a field goal.
Atlanta always finds a way to lose. Young Hui Koo, he's one of the best kickers in the league, probably a Pro Bowl kicker, maybe an All-Pro kicker. He misses a makeable kick to send the thing to overtime. And Kansas City, though, they're winning a bunch of games of late, but they're winning them by 1 possession with 6 points, 4 points, 3 points, very, very close contest. That's the kind of thing you don't expect to win 3 straight in the playoffs that way. So Kansas City needs to find a way to change their dynamic, because right now they're going to get upset in the playoffs if they don't watch it.
The Jets win another game, and Cleveland abandoned the run game. Why, Casey?
I think because the Jets set up a defense that said we're going to play the run game. You're missing 4 receivers. Marvin Hall's your best receiver, and you're going to go with just tight ends, and that's what you're going to do. So we're going to make you throw the football, and Cleveland had to do it, and Mayfield got 285, but it wasn't anywhere near enough. So the Browns, with that COVID situation, they gave the Jets the key to beating them.
The Colts had a huge lead at halftime. They dominated the Steelers in the first half, but Big Ben somehow gets the Steelers to win the game in the end.
He does. Marquise Pouncey evidently told the team at halftime, we don't look like we're not having fun out there, and the Steelers look like they haven't been having fun for 3.5 weeks. They're the most unmotivated team in the league, and now they go out there and they look like they're motivated in the second half, and then they come back to win. Maybe that was the turning point of their season, because they still have enough talent to go to the Super Bowl.
Mitch Trubisky, another win. I think it's, 5 straight games they've scored 30 points for the first time, 40 or 50 years for the Bears? What is going on in Chicago?
Trubisky realized that his career might be over and that he was going to be a career backup after this, after he got benched, and now he's getting a second chance. And people are even talking right now, okay, should Trubisky be the long-term quarterback in Chicago? Not sure that that's the case, but Jacksonville is by far the worst team in the league. And Trubisky keeps playing like this. Maybe you just need to threaten to bench him every few games. You can keep him around for a while.
Baltimore goes up to New York, beats the Giants, and you know what? It wasn't the prettiest win, but Baltimore got back to their bread and butter. That's the rush game, almost 250 rushing yards. They're
the best running team in the league, especially when they put their mind to it. And if you can't get them out of that mode, they're really tough to beat. And the Giants' offense, as bad as it is right now, they were never going to get Baltimore out of that mode.
Probably one of the most exciting games of Sunday was the Bengals beating the Texans. And after the game, J.J. Watt, he was ripping into his teammates.
He was. That organization is dysfunctional right now. You read about what's happening with upper management and such, and plus what they've had with the coaching staff and all the changes they had. And you think of J.J. Watt knowing he's near the end of a Hall of Fame career, and this is what he's having to go through. I think he wants to get out of Houston, and he's going to do whatever he has to do it. But give the Texans credit for fighting a Bengals team that, hey, it looks like the last couple of weeks they're a different team than they were a few weeks before. This is got some talented club.
It wasn't a pretty win, but Justin Herbert outplays Drew Lock and helps the Chargers get a win.
If I'm the Broncos, I'm wondering what I got in Lock. I know that there's a certain level that you can get to, but I'm wondering if this season is showing us his ceiling. And it's not an ideal situation for him, but I don't know that he is the next level quarterback that people thought he was at the end of last year, and obviously Herbert is.
KC Joyner, the football scientist. One thought on every game as we run through NFL Week 16. The Panthers beat Washington. Washington was down to Taylor Heineke at quarterback. Meanwhile, Carolina beats their former coach.
They do, and Washington looks like you got to give Rivera a lot of credit. That's a dysfunctional situation in a lot of ways, and he brought a lot of stability to it. But you can't have the quarterback problems that they have. They had to have Smith under center to be able to be the type of team that they want to be, and as long as he's not there, they've got problems. So and even if he's out there next week, he's not healthy, they're still going to have problems because as he goes is how that team goes.
Second straight week, the Rams' offense struggles, this time against Seattle. Jamal Adams is celebrating, but should Ram fans be worried?
They should be. It looks like Goff's got a broken thumb. At least that was the reports that were out earlier today that he might have had a broken thumb, and it obviously looked like he was off for a lot of that game once he hit that thumb. So, and then if their backup isn't up to par, and that offense is not good, I don't think the Rams make the playoffs this year.
Sunday football supposed to be a huge matchup of two playoff teams, but the Packers didn't just outclass Titans. They won the time of possession by over 13 minutes, Casey.
They did, and the thing is the Titans, they need you to play 4 quarters of stopping Derrick Henry. If you do that, he's going to wear you down. The Packers, through being able to stop the run early and being able to hit some big plays in the passing game, were able to get enough of a lead to where they only had to stop Henry for about a quarter and a half, and that's a heck of a lot easier than this stopping him for 4 quarters, and that made all the difference, and then Green Bay could just play the type of power-running game it wants to play, so kudos to them for that game plan.
Monday Night Football here on 97.3 ESPN. Patriots are officially eliminated from the playoffs, and the Bills, they are looking pretty, but this is the first game in Gillette Field history that the Patriots are not playoff contenders, Casey.
Yeah, well, I don't feel necessarily bad for Patriots fans. You guys got all those Super Bowls to remember no matter what happens this year or in the future. But give the Bills credit for their offense is playing at a much different level, and the Patriots they're such a limited team. I wouldn't be surprised to see them keep the game close just because it's Belichick and he's such a great play caller and things. But the Bills are playing at the talent level differences between their offense and the Patriots' offense is so dramatic, I'd be shocked if the Patriots could keep it within 10.
Real quick, Casey, I'm going to make you pick. If you had to pick which team would you rather put your money behind, is it Buffalo or Miami right now?
It's Buffalo just because where their offense is. With Miami with Tua out there, their offense just isn't dynamic in the way that Buffalo's offense can be multiply dynamic with a bunch of different players. So I would have to take it from that reason. But having said that, I mean, Miami's got, I think, better defensive play calling, and they can get turnovers. If they could get in the Buffalo and win a turnover battle, they got a shot. But if it's just on straight talent, I got to take Buffalo because of their offense.
He is KC Joyner. Follow him on Twitter at KC Joyner TFS for all your fantasy football, DFS, NFL Inside. He does great film work. You can catch all of his work right there at KC Joyner TFS. Casey, thanks so much. I hope you had a great holiday weekend.
You too. Appreciate it.